You ever stare at a screen so long, you forget you're not actually being seen? That was me, sitting in a dark living room, still in my hoodie, watching a Zoom window flicker with fake smiles and corporate coldness. The words on the slide didn't need a voice. We appreciate your time here. That was it. No thank you, no handshake. Just four executives muted, nodding like pallbearers at a funeral they scheduled by calendar invite. They called it a necessary restructuring, said the company was entering a new phase, and that I just wasn't aligned with the velocity anymore. But here's what no one said out loud. I worked through chemotherapy, built the system they now run on, didn't take a single medical leave day, and still, they looked me in the eye and called me dead weight. You ever carry a company through its darkest hour only to be dropped the second the lights come back on? I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't even unmute myself. Just stared into that little black box in the corner of the screen and thought, if this is how they end stories, I'll write my own. Because I wasn't the one who fell apart. They were. They just hadn't realized it yet. It started in a warehouse the size of a football field. No air conditioning. Just dust, sweat, and pallets stacked like crooked skyscrapers. Back then, the whole operation ran on duct tape and prayer. Inventory was tracked with spreadsheets older than my son's PlayStation. Boxes got lost. Deliveries missed windows. We were bleeding money by the hour. So I built something. Quietly, line by line, in the back office, after hours, while the rest of the team hit happy hour or checked out mentally. A system that actually made sense. Automated routing, predictive load balancing, AI restock triggers based on seasonal trends. It didn't look pretty, but it worked. Harder than anyone else in the room. By the time they noticed, we'd cut $4 million in losses. The CTO shook my hand in front of everyone, called it a turning point, and said I was indispensable. I remember smiling politely, but even then, a part of me knew anything you build for someone else can be taken the moment it starts working too well. Still, I stayed. Stayed when the pandemic hit. Stayed when the workforce shrank. Stayed when the stress made me grind my teeth down to the root. Not because I believed in the company, but because I believed in solving the mess no one else wanted to touch. I didn't wear a cape, didn't need a spotlight. Just give me a problem, and silence to fix it in. But silence, I'd soon learn, isn't always a safe place to stand. The clinic smelled like bleach and waiting. Fluorescent lights hummed above me like they knew something I didn't. The nurse didn't meet my eyes when she handed me the results. We caught it early, she said, like that made it a blessing. I didn't cry, didn't ask why, didn't even flinch. Just nodded and checked my calendar. Next client review was Tuesday. Quarterly optimization rollout by Friday. Blood work could fit between lunch and budget forecasting. People say a diagnosis like that changes everything. For me, it just rearranged the silence. I didn't tell many people. Not because I was ashamed, but because in the kind of world I worked in, pain isn't a reason. It's an inconvenience. So I adjusted. Scheduled chemo sessions early in the morning, typed with an ice pack strapped to my wrist, answered Slack messages with my good hand, while the other one held a nausea bag. No one said anything. No one had to. When you stop being the one who delivers and become the one who might need time off, the room starts to shift. They called it supportive flexibility. What they really meant was, We'll smile until it costs us something. But I didn't need their sympathy. Didn't want it. I wasn't looking for applause. All I asked for was to keep solving the things they couldn't. But what I didn't see was how quickly they'd started solving the problem of me. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about being erased. They don't use a sledgehammer, they use a highlighter. Then quietly hit delete. First, it was the Monday strategy meetings. I used to run them. Then I was looped in after the fact. Then, not at all. Next came the project board. My name used to sit under every major deployment. Now it was a I transition lead, pending assignment. Some consultant fresh out of Stanford, wearing confidence like cologne and quoting buzzwords like scripture. He used my system, tweaked a few front-end visuals, added some dashboards, and suddenly he was streamlining innovation. Meanwhile, I was troubleshooting server lag and getting asked if I still had the bandwidth to contribute. Slack messages slowed down, then stopped. Code commits went unanswered. I posted documentation updates. No feedback, just silence, like I was typing into a room that had already been cleared out. Even the CTO, the one who'd once called me our North Star, stopped making eye contact in all hands. You'd think I was contagious, not with cancer, but with inconvenience. And then came the kicker. Someone forwarded me a slide deck from an investor call. There it was, my system, my architecture, labeled Next Gen Platform 2.0. No footnote, no credit, just the new guy's initials in the corner. I sat there, watching a stranger take credit for the skeleton I built with sleepless nights, missed birthdays, and a body slowly breaking from the inside out. And for the first time, I felt something crack. Not just from illness, but from knowing they weren't just moving on without me. They were pretending I'd never been there at all. The invite came late Sunday night. Subject line, quick sync, 9:15 a.m. No agenda, no details. Just the kind of vague that makes your stomach sink before you even click accept. I knew. I think I always knew. But still, I logged in early, hairbrushed, blouse ironed. Like presentation could protect me from politics. The screen blinked to life. 4 faces, all muted. Backgrounds blurred, like they couldn't risk being seen too clearly. The head of HR did most of the talking. Her voice had the softness of a velvet rope. Gentle, but still meant to keep you out. We want to thank you for everything you've done. We're moving in a new direction. We're restructuring to better align with future growth. Each sentence, a polished blade, and the deepest cut? We've noticed a lack of engagement, a dip in performance. Said so calmly, so clinically. Like I was data on a slide they'd already closed. No mention of the chemo bags under my desk. No reference to the 3 a.m. server patch I deployed while vomiting into a trash bin. Not even a thank you for the architecture still running beneath their shiny new interface. Just, you're not the right fit anymore. And a link to an offboarding document. I didn't speak. Didn't ask why. Because what would have been the point? They hadn't called to explain. They'd called to erase, to formalize the forgetting. One by one, the faces disappeared from the screen. The HR rep stayed a moment longer, like she was waiting for me to break. I didn't. She left anyway, and then there was just me, alone, staring at a blinking cursor in a system I built, being told I no longer belonged. They didn't fire me because I failed. They fired me because I reminded them of the cost. and no one wants to look at what they owe. The official email came 2 hours later. No subject line, just a PDF attachment labeled Separation Packet _001. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say, what it wouldn't say. Instead, I logged into the internal dashboard. Muscle memory. One last time. The system greeted me with my usual credentials. But something was off. My profile picture? Gone. Permissions? Restricted. Folders I created? Now read only. The name on the code repository I once managed? Replaced. Archived. Labeled. Legacy greater than old system backup v3. Like I was a dusty file in a forgotten cabinet. Like all I'd built was just deprecated. There was no goodbye thread. No, thanks for everything. Slack message. No awkward company-wide ping with cake emojis. Just silence. The kind that hums in your ears. The kind that follows a burial. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because I needed applause, but because erasure hurts more than rejection. They didn't just let me go. They scrubbed the fingerprints clean, as if removing my name from the code would somehow delete the fact that they're still standing on my work. It wasn't grief for the job. It was grief for the version of myself that once believed effort could protect you. And as I sat there, watching my own digital obituary unfold, I realized something cold and crystal clear. I hadn't lost a job. I'd lost a place in the story. And now, it was time to write a new one. On my terms. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would check in. A quick DM. Oh, what happened? Are you okay? Something human. But the messages didn't come. Not that day. Not the next. Not ever. The same people who once flooded my inbox with panicked deploy requests and midnight troubleshooting pleas vanished. Like they'd never leaned on me. Like I'd never carried them. Even the one who cried in my office when his code broke the payment gateway. The same one who called me his work mom. He updated his LinkedIn title that week to Lead Systems Architect. The title I held. The one I'd earned. Another posted a selfie with the new team, captioned, "Here's to fresh starts and future vision." I recognized the background. It was the break room where I once sat alone, eating reheated soup between chemo rounds. No one tagged me. No one even remembered I was still watching. It wasn't just about the silence. It was about what the silence revealed. Loyalty, in corporate America, is a one-way mirror. You see them. You show up. You give everything. And when you're no longer useful, they keep walking, never noticing the reflection that's missing. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just numb, like grief in slow motion, like watching your own funeral, but no one shows up because the calendar said team lunch. That's when I knew. There'd be no closure handed to me, no justice in an email, no vindication in a Slack emoji. If I wanted peace, I'd have to build it myself. Same way I built everything else. Quietly. Precisely. And without asking for permission. It was a week later when I opened the drive. The one they never asked me to return. Old folders, zipped archives, backups of backups. Stuff they probably assumed I'd deleted months ago. Buried in a directory called Client Migration Prototype. Final, I found it. The original license key. The seed module. The one I wrote back when I was still freelancing, before they hired me full-time. I remembered the night I built it. Rain tapping the window, half a burrito on my desk, my son asleep in the next room. Back then, it was just an idea. A security layer no one had thought to ask for. A quiet little gatekeeper baked into the system's spine. When the company brought me on, they asked for everything: diagrams, credentials, endpoints. But that tiny core license never came up, and I never offered. Not because I was planning anything, but because part of me always knew. You don't hand over all the keys when the locks are still being built. I opened the code, read every line. It was still there, unchanged, waiting. And in that moment, I didn't feel erased. I felt essential. They thought they owned everything, but they forgot the difference between what's used and what's authored. They forgot that the thing they're standing on, the whole platform they now sell, pitch, and parade, still breathes through something I created. And that piece still answers to me. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just sat in the glow of the screen and whispered the first sentence of a new kind of story. They called me dead weight, so I became the thing they couldn't move without. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. Revenge is loud. It demands witnesses. What I wanted was something quieter, something they wouldn't see until it was too late to look away. I opened the codebase again, this time not to fix anything, but to remind it who wrote it. The module still worked exactly as I designed it. It wasn't malicious. It didn't break anything. It just waited. See, most systems grow. They evolve, scale, duplicate. And mine had a heartbeat. The license key I held didn't stop their operation. It didn't shut down warehouses or delete files. But it did one thing. One very specific, very intentional thing. It made every expansion attempt bounce against a wall they didn't know existed. New locations couldn't be added. New vendor APIs failed to authenticate. The system didn't crash. It just refused to grow. Like a house locked from the inside, and the only person with the spare key was already gone. I didn't encrypt it, didn't even hide it. I just left it where it had always been, sitting quietly in the foundation, undocumented, untouched, undeniably mine. I named the license file WHISPER_01, a little message embedded in silence. It stood for, when hope isn't shouted, power emerges resilient. No kill switch, no drama, just truth, waiting in plain sight. People think power means domination, that you have to raise your voice to be heard. But sometimes, power is writing the one line of code that no one notices until everything stops moving without you. And when they did notice, when the emails started piling in, the system logs breaking pattern, the expansion stalling out, I was already gone, no longer in their folders, no longer in their story. But the story, still very much running on me. It started with a ticket, low priority, something about a new warehouse in Nevada not syncing with the central system. Then another, vendor onboarding failed in Kansas, API timeouts. Unexpected validation error, the kind of bugs that don't scream, they hum. I watched from a distance, didn't need access to the server anymore. Their panic leaked through public forums, job listings, even LinkedIn posts written with too much corporate polish. Looking for senior DevOps consultant, experience with legacy warehouse integrations preferred. Legacy. That's what they were calling my system now. The same one they swore was next generation. The same one they demoed in glossy slides and startup expos. But when they tried to scale it, when they pushed for rapid deployment in 6 new regions, the whole thing stalled. No explosions, no sirens, just slow failure. Orders duplicated, shipments delayed. Third-party vendors couldn't authenticate. Executives started blaming each other in emails they probably assumed would stay internal. And somewhere buried in a bug report, a junior engineer typed, "System dependency trace leads back to something called Whisper 01, not documented anywhere." That's when I knew they'd found it. Not the file, the truth. They could rewrite the front end, rebrand the company, hire fresh faces, but underneath it all, they were still standing on the bones I built. And when those bones refused to stretch any further, the whole body froze. No lawsuits, no headlines, just a whisper, and a wall they didn't know how to climb. I didn't smile, didn't celebrate. Just closed my laptop, stood up, and let the silence do what it always does best. Finish the story. The email came at 7:04 a.m. Subject line: "Let's talk." No punctuation, just urgency, dressed up as humility. I let it sit. Didn't open it for 2 days. By the time I did, there were 3 more. Then a call. Then another. This time, it was the CTO. The same one who once shook my hand in front of the entire floor and then erased me from every roadmap after. Now his tone was different. Slower. Softer. Laced with desperation dressed up as opportunity. They valued my contributions. They were looking to re-engage senior leadership. They were prepared to offer something competitive. Translation: the system won't grow without you, and we're bleeding money trying to pretend it will. They asked for a call, a conversation. Off the record. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. Instead, I replied with one sentence. Just one. No attachments. No signature. Just this: I don't rebuild for those who delete. No reply. No follow-up. That's the thing about power. Once you stop chasing it, you realize how many people only wanted you because they thought they could control the ending. But I wasn't theirs to fix. I was the part they never understood. The one that couldn't be replaced with a new hire, a new title, a newer version of the same mistake. They wanted a patch. What they needed was a reckoning. And I wasn't offering either. I didn't go back, not to fix, not to consult, not even to say, "I told you so." But I did make one call to a small logistics startup I'd been watching from the sidelines. Ethical, underfunded, trying to grow the right way, but struggling with the wrong tools. I offered them something they didn't know they needed: a clean version of my original system, simplified, streamlined, untangled from the hands that broke it. They asked what I wanted in return. Equity? Credit? A press release? I said no to all of it. All I asked for was one thing: train your own. Hire engineers from communities that never get a seat at the table, and make sure every line of code carries the names of the people who wrote it. No ghosts, no silent erasures, no rewritten history. They agreed. No hesitation. And just like that, the thing I built to survive became the blueprint for something better. I didn't need to destroy anything. I just had to give it to someone who actually knew how to build. I moved into a smaller place. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 flickering porch light, and just enough room for peace to stretch its legs. The first few weeks felt strange, like learning how to breathe without bracing for impact. No pings, no deadlines, no calendars color-coded with someone else's chaos. The silence used to feel like punishment. Now it felt like air, software unobstructed. Mine. I started teaching again. Online classes, intro to back-end architecture, system design for small teams. Most of my students were women. Some were single moms. Some had been laid off. All of them had been overlooked. I saw myself in them, not the polished version, The one companies pretend to admire after they've buried you. Number, the version still raw, still rebuilding, still unsure if their voice deserved space in the room. And every time one of them asked a question, like it was too expensive to take up time, I answered slowly, deliberately, like their voice was the most important sound in the world. Because healing doesn't always look like getting back up. Sometimes it looks like sitting still until you remember you were never broken, just unheard. The silence didn't erase me, it reset me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel erased. I felt restored. The startup I partnered with started making headlines. Not big ones. Not front-page tech hype with flying cars and billion-dollar valuations, but the kind that matter. Local logistics firm rethinks warehouse tech with ethical code sharing. Hiring pipeline opens doors for overlooked engineers. They didn't mention me, and I didn't ask them to. That was the point. Behind the scenes, I watched their system grow. Stable, transparent, human, no bloatware, no vanity metrics, just real solutions, written by real people, most of whom had never even set foot in a computer science department. But every time they pushed a new update, every time someone committed a fix or shipped a cleaner patch, I felt it. Not pride, not ownership, just right. They offered me a press piece, said it would be good PR for them and good closure for me. I declined. What I needed most wasn't to be seen. It was to know that the work was finally in the hands of people who respected what it took to build it. Still, there was one thing I asked them to include. One small line, hidden in the header of every code file they shipped. CPP Sao Chep Chin Sua, original architecture by MR. In silence we build. No full name, no flashy signature, just enough. Because real power doesn't always show up in boardrooms or headlines or job titles. Sometimes it lives in the unseen scaffolding, the part of the structure no one applauds, but everything would collapse without. I used to think I needed recognition, to be heard, to be remembered. But now I know. There's something more lasting than legacy. Integrity. Quiet. Unbought. Undeniable. One night, I opened a blank document. The cursor blinked like it was waiting for something I hadn't let myself say. So I wrote it. A letter. Not to be sent. Not to be read aloud. Just for me. It started with the name of the man who'd once said I was the backbone of the company. The same one who vanished the second my body needed time to heal. I didn't curse him. Didn't list every late night, every skipped meal, every invisible contribution. Instead, I wrote this. I didn't fail your system. I just refused to disappear inside it. You built a machine that only loved people when they stopped needing love. And I was never built for that kind of cruelty. You wanted silent labor. You got silent resistance instead. I paused. Let the words sit. They didn't scream. They didn't accuse. They simply told the truth. The kind of truth that doesn't burn bridges, just quietly locks the door behind you so you don't walk back through it out of habit. I thought maybe writing it would make me want to send it, to release the final arrow. But when I finished, I didn't hit print, didn't even save. I just closed the window. Because peace, I've learned, doesn't come from saying everything. Sometimes it comes from finally having nothing left to say. They didn't deserve my anger. They didn't even earn my grief. All they earned was my absence. And that's the kind of silence you don't recover from. I heard about the fallout in pieces. A blog post here, a leaked memo there. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic. just the slow unraveling of a company trying to run on bones it had already buried. Their new system rollout failed twice. Investors pulled back. Warehouse operations stalled so badly they had to outsource to a competitor. And that competitor was using the platform I'd rebuilt on the outside. Irony has a quiet sense of humor. Eventually, the company was bought out, folded into a larger logistics conglomerate. The name disappeared, the domain expired. The last post on their website was a 404 page with the words, "We're restructuring to serve you better." I didn't dance on the ashes, didn't repost headlines, didn't whisper, "I told you so," into the void. I just watched it happen the same way they watched me go. Silently. I'd driven past the old warehouse once. The windows were boarded up, a for lease sign crooked on the chain link fence. No trucks, no people, just wind whistling through what used to be ambition. And for a second, I thought about getting out, standing there, taking a picture, posting it with some poetic caption about justice. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed in the car, rolled down the window, and let the air carry one final thought into that empty space. You built it without me, then tried to grow it past me. Now it dies quietly because of what you refuse to see. Sometimes, the loudest revenge is the silence that stays long after everything else collapses. I came back one last time, not for closure, not for answers, just curiosity. The sun was low. Golden light spilled across the parking lot like it was trying to warm something long forgotten. The building stood quiet, emptier than I'd ever seen it, as if even the ghosts had packed up and moved on. I didn't go inside, didn't need to. Instead, I stepped out of the car, walked up to the locked front door, and stood there for a moment. No one came out. No one rushed to explain, or apologize, or undo what had been done. And for once, that felt okay. I pulled a folded slip of paper from my pocket. Just one sentence, written in my own hand. I slid it under the door. No fanfare, no signature. Just a quiet truth left behind for whatever hollowed-out shell still remained inside. It read, "Nothing dead about this weight." And with that, I turned around, walked back to the car, and drove away without looking back. No slow-motion victory, no background music swelling in the distance, no final confrontation, just stillness, and the kind of peace that doesn't need to be witnessed to be real. If you've ever been told you're too quiet, too slow, too soft to matter, this part is for you. If they called you dead weight because you didn't break yourself to prove you belonged in a room that never saw you, you're not alone. We live in a world that worships noise, rewards the ones who talk over others, elevates performance over presence, and forgets that some of the most powerful things are built in silence, by people who never asked for credit, just the chance to contribute without being erased. But here's what they never teach you in the exit interviews. You can lose a title and still keep your value. You can be pushed out and still own what you built. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is choosing not to burn the house down, but building something better next door. So if you're listening to this and you've been written out, underestimated, replaced, forgotten, let this be your reminder. You are not disposable. You are not invisible. And your silence? That might be the most powerful voice in the room. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever sat in that Zoom call, read that exit email, or watched someone else take credit for what you built, drop a comment, say, "They forgot who I was," or just leave a square emoji. we'll know what it means. And if you want more stories like this, stories where the quiet ones rise, not with noise, but with precision, hit that like button, subscribe, share this with someone who's rebuilding, because silence isn't weakness, it's strategy, and every whisper starts a ripple.